Welcome everyone to Grief Reflection today or tonight, or whatever time it is, with our topic today being relationship changes. So starting like usual, Carly is going to light a candle. Would you want to do that?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Natalie. If you haven't joined us before, we always just like to start our conversation by just lighting a candle to acknowledge all the beautiful babies and children that came into our lives and left before we wish they had. Pop that up there. Okay.
Good. So welcome everyone. And as usual, we want to say that we're sorry for your losses. And having said this, we want to just be reminded that the reason why we're here is to walk on the path of healing together and meet whatever there is to meet. Also, I just want to say today that whatever we're saying, and I hope it's okay that I speak for you, Carly, and myself, is we're speaking from our own experience, from our own personal experience, as well as the experience that we had with clients and friends who are also bereaved parents. If anything that we're saying doesn't apply to you, or you feel that's not for you, then just leave that and listen on to something else. Just pick and choose whatever is meaningful and helpful to you. So today we're going to talk about relationship changes. And part of the relationship changes could be intimate relationship. So whether that is with your partner who is the biological father or mother of your child or is not. It could be the relationship with your family and friends. It could also be that you're single and you might be missing that kind of support that you are looking for in relationship and experiencing isolation. So think about relationship in a broad sense. And there's a couple of things that came in relation to intimate relationship and in terms of relationship with friends and family. What do you think, Carly? Where shall we start?
I think we start off with the most popular question, and that is, grieving with a partner. I think that would be a really good one to start off with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So shall I take one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we had a question from a man here who said he would be interested to hear our thoughts on the differences between how men and women handle grief and how we men can better understand and support our partners during the grieving process. And he says, for example, things like anniversary dates often seem very important to the women, whereas men might be more sensitive to specific events, like being able to take our child to a favorite sporting event or band or to see a special movie. So in terms of differences in grieving, I'd like to share some of the research or grief theory behind that. And just to bracket that, I'm not a grief theorist, but what has been found, and that's based on grief theory by Doka and Martin, and that there's two patterns of grieving, and one of them is called the intuitive grieving pattern, and one the instrumental grieving pattern. And rather than saying specifically men or women grieve that way, even though traditionally there is this differentiation, think about it, where someone grieves more in a masculine way, which would be the cognitive way to grieve, and I'll explain a little bit about that, or a more female way, which would be the intuitive way to grieve. And I just want to share something about that that I write about in the book Grieving Parents. So they say that the intuitive pattern is where grief is expressed in an effective way, so which means they adapt to it by showing emotions. And the instrumental griever, they experience grief physically, such as in a restlessness or by thinking about it on a cognitive level. They adapt to it by thinking through it or wanting to do something actively. And you might have experienced that in relationship where, and now traditionally it's the man who goes and does something about it and needs to create something, or goes out and thinks about it, but might not show or speak, show a lot of emotion or speak about it as traditionally women do. And that obviously can create quite a big gap between a husband and a wife if they're both biological parents of the child. How was that in your case, Carly? Would you mind sharing how it was?
Yeah, I mean, very early on, Sam and I, we didn't even really discuss it, and I always advise people to have a discussion with your partner. But we're lucky that we have a very sort of clear communication. I guess it comes from me. I have to communicate what I need and what I want. And so Sam and I were together for years before we had Christian and he died. So we had a really good relationship. And so from the very beginning, he wrote me this beautiful little, like, it was just a card. I should have got it out. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But he wrote me this beautiful card, and it just had one sentence which said, I love you, we're in this together, and then just wrote his name, and that was it. And he gave that to me, and that's when, I think the day after we were given the fatal diagnosis for Christian. And so that just meant the world to me. It's probably one of the most beautiful things that he ever did for me, when I think about everything as a whole. And so we have kind of always just allowed each other, we've accepted each other's way of grieving. So I know, he doesn't talk about Christian nearly as much as what I do. And sometimes that would bother me. Like, I would be like, don't you feel sad? Like, don't you feel like I feel? But then I realized that, men are different to women, and they grieve differently. It's not wrong. Like, they're not doing it wrong, even though to us it might feel wrong. It's just different. And I think when you can learn to accept that that is okay, and that you can both grieve in your own ways, just because your partner might not be saying much doesn't mean that they're not internalizing everything, and us as women, I think we like to talk, and we show our emotions a lot easier. So if you can sit back and just think about what he could be going through without saying, and try and imagine that, then it might be easier for everyone to accept their partner's grief, which once you can do that, it's a lot easier, I believe. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that, Natalie.
Thank you. Well, it's great, to get your personal experience as well as what we know from others. And I think his question was how to support the partner. I mean, this is from a man, and I can only speak from my own experience as well, is that this acceptance might be not as easy, but it goes a long way. And I might have said that before, we can accept something without understanding it. And often we think that if we understand it, we can better or easier accept. And still we can accept something even if we don't understand it. And the truth is that, I just needed a lot of time. I needed a lot of time being with all that, and my husband was very supportive in that. And still, I can imagine that he was puzzled at what's going on now. Even now it's coming up to 3 years, and still now I might have explosiveness, which I wouldn't necessarily attribute to specifically the grief. However, I know that my resilience, or my resilience at dealing with things or at multitasking has reduced since that time, so that I just can't handle too much stress. I can't handle too many things going on. I get easily overwhelmed, and that in itself it brings change in a relationship. And I guess one of the most important things is that, which has been reflected by people that I asked in the survey for the book, is that when relationship changes happen anyway, with or without the death of a child.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
But however, they get really accentuated, and they are intensified through such an intense thing that happens at the same time. And I said that before, you know, usually we have a stress that affects one of us. So one loses their job, or the other partner loses someone in their family, or if we're just talking about loss, but there's other challenges. But this is something that we experience together, and both react and experience it so differently. Yeah. So in terms of helping, I mean, Carly, you said it. What I did, I asked my husband if I was wondering what's going on for him. I would ask him. I would say to him, "Are you ever thinking of Amaya?" He'd never say anything, and I would ask him, and hopefully with a question that is open-ended, so that the partner can feel invited to respond. I mean, I wasn't always that good. I would say, "You seem to never think about her." Well, that's a conversation closer as opposed to a conversation opener. So if you can ask open-ended question, are you thinking about our child, and what are you thinking?
Yeah. I think, sorry, sorry, go on.
So just a little differentiation. Open-ended questions are like, what's going on for you? That leaves the other partner to say the three things. If you ask a closed-ended question, it can be answered with yes or no. Like, are you thinking about our child? Yes. But then you're not much further besides knowing yes. So if you can practice open-ended question, that will open up a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, looking back, I think it would have helped me if I was more aware of the way that I spoke to Sam, like the language that I used with him and the tone in my voice. But you know, that's all very well and good for me to just say that that's what people should do, because when you're in the depths of grief, everything is clouded and it's not, you know, it's not easy, and your emotions are high or low or wherever they are. So I think, in all honesty though, if you can be aware of your own thoughts and just take some time out to think about your partner, because I think we're also, like, for me personally, I'm very I wouldn't say I'm self-absorbed, but I think I have a huge sort of battle with my own ego, where everything just always seems to be about what I'm feeling and what I'm going through and what I need. And you know, Sam probably should have sat in on this conversation, Natalie. But I'm being honest, you know, like he's pretty much an angel, really, when you know, for everything that he has witnessed and stuck by me and allowed me to grieve however I want. But yeah, I think if I had have been just taken a step back and actually thought about him more and how I could maybe, you know, if I was upset about him not thinking about Christian, you know, I could have maybe helped him out with something, or done exactly what you said and asked an open-ended question rather than stopping the conversation. Yeah.
And you know, what you said leads me to say that it also involves self-acceptance and self-forgiveness. You know, both of us are past the initial intenseness of grief, and in that intenseness, I wasn't really good either with not being emotional or asking open-ended question. However, if you can go back and just have a little bit of awareness of what's happening and reflecting on the process, so that's the process of the observer, and use that as a way to see yourself and what you've been doing. And you know, it's an easy way. I mean, there has been many times I had to say, "Look, I'm really sorry, I'm stressed," or "I didn't mean that, but this is just like I am." And even just not so long ago, a few months ago, I was in a very dark place again, and I said to Chris, "You know, you have the luxury to go. I don't have the luxury with myself. I'm stuck with myself." Because I really noticed I'm really in this tug of war between this and that emotion, and we often let the closest person to us, the person we love most, we let them know, even though we love them the most, they also get the most
Yeah.
negativity from us. So it is self-acceptance and self-forgiveness, and practicing saying sorry, practicing maybe even getting the support you need from couples counseling, or from individual counseling, or from whatever it is that helps you work with those.
Yeah, I definitely think like, and this, I think this is, we could probably go into other relationships now with this
Yeah,
conversation, that communicating your needs is a huge like way for you to keep relationships strong. If you're going to, let's say, I don't know, you want people to be more supportive of you, and you're just expecting them to do it without actually asking for help, or you know, they can't predict what you need. They can't read your mind. So as much as it would, I mean, no, that would be horrible if people could read your mind. But you know what I mean? Like if if people could read your mind, then they would be able to help you out. But the truth is that they don't know what to do. And so, if you have a lot of strong relationships and you feel like they're kind of falling apart or it's not going well, try communicating what you need. And that isn't going to guarantee that everything's going to be fine, but it at least lets that other person know. It might be a friend or a cousin or a sister or whatever. It lets them know what you need, and then it's up to them with how they take that information and what they do with it. And they might be terrible at empathizing, and they may shut down and not be able to help you, and that might be the reality of that situation. And in the end, that relationship might, it could break up, or it could not be very strong anymore, or whatever happens. And I think one thing that I've learned in time is that relationships don't often, they don't always have to stay lifelong relationships. They could just be for that time in your life, and then they kind of fall away. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a natural thing, I think. I mean, am I wrong in saying that? Do you think, Natalie?
No, I don't think you're wrong. And I mean, a couple of the comments and questions we had were relating to the loss of friends. And one of the comments here that I'm reading is people didn't seem to know, or don't seem to know, how to deal with the loss of a child, and so stayed away. And it just encapsulates the different question in relation to friendships. And I think you're right. However, in this tug of war between the emotions, even the support of what was closest friends might fall away, because it is drawing forth all of the existential questions in people when they see someone else go through that. So, I mean, I've said that before, the differentiation between firefighters and builders. Many people might have one or the other capacity. So firefighters are the ones that come right in the beginning of when the grief has happened, and might be there to help out in the beginning, bring meals and look after you and come and help you. And then there are the builders, those friends who stay and come again and again. And not many people have the capacity to be both. And I think grief comes with that part where we have to learn to accept that some of those that we called friends before are not able to deal with this. And I guess you and I, we have both experienced that. And that's just another level, another layer of accepting the changes that come with grief and with death.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think I've been pretty lucky. So I know out there's a lot of people that I hear it a lot. Like, I hear it every day. Like, my friend doesn't know how to do this, and no one's supporting me, and I kind of feel sometimes like I don't know what to say, because I have great, like, there was a few times where things people said wrong things, and now that I look back, like I can see it much more clear, and I'm not angry at those people for saying the wrong things to me. At the time it hurt, and now I look back and it's like, you know what, they were doing the best they could with the information that they had and the experience that they had. And it is very difficult though to work, especially if you've got, like, I know a friend of mine, I won't mention her name, but she had a lifelong friend, her bestest friend in the whole world, and when her daughter was stillborn at full term, her friend just pretty much told her that she just couldn't deal with it, and that it was just because it was a negative situation, she just couldn't be around it. And her friendship just completely ended. Like, they don't speak to each other anymore. They knew each other for 28 years. And I just think that that's such a tragedy, and that's unfortunately, that is the reality of it, and it's just something that you have to, for me, I think the way I would get through that is looking for new friendships, and also learning to love yourself and spending time with yourself. And if you can do that, you're not as alone all the time. I mean, I know that's easier for me to say. I'm 7 years out and everything is great at the moment for me personally. But I remember thinking back at that time and going, I felt lonely, and because I didn't love myself, and I hadn't really grown as a person, I hated the loneliness. And now as I'm growing into the person that I am, and I'm learning to love myself more, I love being alone. It's a completely, full circle. So I think what you said about self-care is really, really important.
Yeah. What you said reminds me about another point that I speak about in the book, which is secondary losses. And the loss of friends is just one example of secondary losses. Secondary losses is anything in addition to the loss of the loved person, in our case, the child that we have lost. So it could be loss of future hopes and dreams, loss of potential, loss of then maybe having grandchildren because you're not able to have a child, and so forth. And for me, I remember specifically two friends that I haven't heard of more than a couple of sentences since in the past 3 years. And I don't know exactly why this has the relationship has ceased. And as you were saying before about being self-centered, it doesn't even just have to do with us and our loss. We actually don't know what other people are going through in their lives. It might not be a loss of a child, but it might be real challenges in their relationship, or a change of
it's a challenge. The amount of people that suffer from depression and anxiety and things like that, and they don't tell anyone. So we don't know what internal battles that everyone else is going through at the same time. So yeah, it is. Sorry, I just totally took that away from you, didn't I?
It's all fine. And I think today we sort of talk about topics more so than specific questions, because it's really the sentiment around intimate relationship and around friends and family is a lot of similarities in terms of the question. And what, to me, it points as well is the isolation and the loneliness that comes with grief. And what I find interesting about that is that I don't know if that's a story that I heard or something that I read, so I don't know, can't quote the source, but when we were in the Stone Age, people who were grieving were going into the cave and curling up in fetal position and just heal through that grief. Now, why they were doing it? Probably because being outside and being in the wilderness would have all kind of dangers. And so I think, but that picture symbolizes to me that loneliness and taking care of self might also be part of it. As well as now today in today's society, the not understanding or being puzzled of why these friends no longer don't talk to me, or maybe being angry at the one that doesn't, to me is always an invitation to look inward again, to say, okay, what is this about me and my grief? Because I believe in my life is nothing about someone else. It's always a reflection inside. And you know, at times I'm just outward focused and projecting, or I'm upset at this person. But then when it takes a bit of time lag between that, I can then spend some time at looking back at myself and say, what is this about me? Where am I invited to experience more? So it might be perceived anger at that person, where in fact that might be just one of the puzzles of the spiral through grief, which circles through all these emotions.
Yeah. I think something that just reminded me of were like the conversation of about we don't know what other people are going through. I have a friend here in Perth, and I see this person. I don't really want them to know who they are, because I don't want them to know that I thought this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Anyway, I see this person on a regular basis, and it would be at the beach, and then all of a sudden I stopped seeing this person. They would stop coming down to the beach, and it was for like 6 months, and I was friends with this person like in person and also on Facebook. So I thought, well, they haven't unfriended me, so that's good. And so I was thinking about, maybe I've offended them, or maybe I did something. What could I have done? And then I started to get really upset about it. And then about a month later, after I thought it was all about me, I thought that I'd done something, and I didn't understand why they didn't want to see me at the beach anymore, or whatever. I found out that my friend's daughter had been diagnosed with very serious illness, and that they had kept it private, and that they were just taking that time to help heal her and just deal with that situation. And you know, I just felt like such an idiot when I found that out, because I had made the whole thing about me, and I thought, well, I've done something, or why don't they like me anymore? And I was really upset. And yet I couldn't pick up the phone and call them and say, is everything okay? You know, and I just felt like an even bigger idiot. So here I am admitting it to the world. But, you know, if I had have communicated to that family, even though this doesn't have anything to do with grief, but you can relate it, they would have said, look, this is what we're dealing with at the moment, and this is why we're not coming down to the beach, and all would have been fine. But instead I went through this trauma of thinking I had really upset them, and I admire these people, like they're the most beautiful people. But I didn't have to go through that. So I think if everyone could communicate their needs in their relationships, open communication is going to help a lot. It might not fix everything, and it might not change the way the person reacts to you, but if you can be honest and open with everyone, I think it would definitely be on the right path.
Mm. Yeah, I think we covered the different areas of the relationship changes. And is there anything else that we wanted to say, or do we want to?
No, I could probably talk for hours about it.
Yeah.
No hours.
And I think that it's just an interesting point. We can talk about this for hours, and I guess what I said before as well is, at times I've probably been really weird. I call myself, I've been probably become less socially digestible than I was before. Now, before I was more people-pleasing or accommodating, whereas now with the grief or post-grief, I've become more honest. So I guess to some degree that might apply to many people, many grieving people, where people around us experience us as weird or as changed. And so, yeah, there were some times when I didn't want to be around me, but I don't have that luxury. And so I can only assume that some people around me would have not found it very easy to be around me.
I think also like something that I find is not popular, that's a terrible word, my goodness, but a common feelings once you become a bereaved parent, and especially on social media, you'll see it a lot when your friends will complain about their night that they had with their kids and how they stayed up all night and it was so horrible because someone was throwing up or she didn't settle, and they're really angry about it. And I just remember and it still gets to me sometimes. I know we're all human and staying up all night is a difficult thing. But I remember at the time thinking, you know what, I can't believe my friend posted that and knowing what I'm going through, you know? And,
Yeah.
I just think, and it changes us. Grief makes you angry. It makes you an angry person. For me, it did anyway. I got through that. I think that's a natural thing that everyone has to go through. But for me, it was really ugly, and I didn't like the person that I was. And because the people that are complaining on Facebook about their kids, they just don't understand. And thankfully, they don't have any idea. They don't have any idea what it's like to lose a child. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but you just reminded me of it. And I just remember it's a really huge topic of discussion in the support group that I run. It comes up often where people are like, guys, how do you deal with the fact that people are complaining all the time? And I just say, well, if it helps, just hide the posts or block them or whatever.
Yeah.
And just when you're ready to handle those sorts of people complaining about how hard their lives are, then you can go back to it. But it's about, I think you have to protect your own heart, and you have to be strong and not try and please everyone, and just communicate your needs.
Yeah, so to round this up, you who are listening to us, you are dealing with the changes in your relationship. So if you're willing, share with us and share with the others how you are dealing with it. And practice the self-acceptance. Whatever is here for you now is here for you now. And accept for it to change as well. So if you're willing to do that, you can do that on the website grievingparents.net, where I'm also going to share, just 10 things about relationship changes after this episode. And leave a comment in the comment section. You can do this anonymously if you want, or using your Facebook user profile. Or you can even share your blog if you want to blog about it. And if you like this episode, there's a couple of others that we've already done. So head over to Healing Conversations channel on YouTube and click like and share with your friends and family. And if you want other advice and support through your grief to healing, plus some news that we're going to give you soon about the book being revealed, or the book cover being revealed soon, sign up. I promise I will not share your email addresses with anyone else. You can just simply go to grievingparents.net and sign up for email updates, and you're welcome to unsubscribe anytime you want. So keep reflecting and sharing your journey, because the world needs to become more equipped and more used to us being around them, as well as we need to become more used to dealing with the challenges like grief and support the grieving. So thank you very much for being with here today, and we'll look forward to hearing your comments about anything on the event page or on the blog post. Anything else you want to say, Carly?
No, absolutely not. We will see you all next time.
Thank you very much. See you next time.